They handed my sister the condo I helped pay for, then told me I was too intense to be part of the family. And when I found out they forged my signature to seal the deal, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I collected every receipt, then dropped the truth like a hammer at a family dinner in front of everyone. Hi, I'm Jenna, and for years I thought keeping the peace meant staying quiet. But the day they turned my ambition into a reason to erase me, I stopped being their silence. And trust me, what came next? They never saw it coming. Before we jump into the story, if you don't mind, let me know where you're from by leaving a comment below. That way, I can send a special hello your way. Now go ahead, grab yourself a warm cup of water, and find a comfy spot. It's time to begin the story. I got the text at 7:42 a.m. on a Wednesday. Come for dinner Friday, honey. Just us. It was short, almost casual, like we did this sort of thing often. We didn't. No birthday, no holiday, just those 3 words. Just us. And I stared at the screen longer than I care to admit. I sat in the corner booth of that coffee shop I always go to before meetings, hands wrapped around a paper cup that had long gone cold. My eyes kept drifting back to that message. Part of me wanted to believe it meant something, that maybe, after all this time, they finally saw me. I spent the next 2 days in that headspace, the kind where you rehearse smiles in the mirror and tell yourself this time might be different. I picked up a cheesecake from Maline's, Mom's favorite place near South Congress. A little overpriced, but I knew she'd recognize the box. I also pulled out the silver music box I found in storage last week. It used to sit on my childhood dresser, the kind that plays a lullaby when you twist the bass. I had it polished and fixed. That tiny engraved name, Jenna, still caught the light like it used to. By Friday afternoon, I was parked outside my parents' place in West Austin. Big white brick, slate roof, not a leaf out of place. It always looked like it belonged on a catalog page. I sat in the car a moment longer than I should have, staring at the gift bag in the passenger seat. Inside, the music box felt heavier than it was. When I rang the bell, the door swung open almost immediately. Mom stood there in a silk blouse, cranberry-colored, and soft curls pinned neatly above her shoulders. Her lipstick matched the tulips on the dining table behind her. "Jenna," she said, brushing her cheek against mine before I could offer a proper hello. "You look tired. Are you working too much again?" I handed her the cheesecake, trying to keep the curve in my mouth steady. "It's from Maline's. Like you like." She smiled, thinly. "Sweet girl," she replied, voice already floating toward the kitchen. That phrase, sweet girl, could mean anything from affection to condescension depending on her tone. Today it felt like dismissal, dusted in sugar. Dad poured wine as I stepped in. He gave a nod, not much else. Elaine was already at the table, perched like she was born to sit at the head of something. Her hair was curled, one of those glossy, sweeping styles that looks like it took 2 hours to achieve and costs 3 figures. She wore white, which on her always looked intentional, like branding. "Jenna," she chirped, "you made it." I smiled, nodded. Of course. The table was set with the good plates, tulip china, polished flatware, linen napkins. Candles glowed in low glass holders. It all looked like the cover of some Southern lifestyle magazine. We sat, we talked about traffic, about the mayoral campaign Elaine's PR firm had just landed, about the weather. I tried to join in, but mostly I listened. I always had. Dinner was roast chicken with herbed potatoes, asparagus laid out like someone measured each stalk. I ate slowly. The cheesecake sat unopened at the center of the table. Halfway through, Dad set down his fork. That kind of pause that means something's coming. "We gave Elaine the condo on Kirby," he said like it was a mention, not a decision. I blinked. "The condo? Kirby Tower?" Mom chimed in, smiling. "It's perfect for her image. You should see the view from the 31st floor. Breathtaking." Elaine giggled softly. "It fits what I do. You know, optics matter, especially with charity events and mixers." My jaw tightened. I nodded slowly, waiting for the part where they explained how. or why, or something. Mom leaned forward, her eyes wide with that soft kind of pity she uses when she's rewriting the truth. You've always loved your independence, sweetheart. That apartment of yours is so you, closer to your startup hub, right? Dad chuckled, swirling his wine like it was a casual remark. We figured you'd rather invest in yourself. Elaine added, You're always doing your own thing, but I'll make sure you can come by. For mixers, fundraisers, you'll love the balcony. That was when it hit me. This wasn't casual, it wasn't even clueless. It was rehearsed. They had practiced this. The setting, the cheesecake, the candles, none of it was for me. It was a stage. My name had been used on the documents. My savings had helped with the down payment once, long ago, when it was just a family reserve. And now it was her address. I excused myself before dessert, claiming an early meeting. No one protested. In the hallway, Mom followed, voice still light. Don't forget to thank your sister. It was her idea to include you tonight. Include me. I held the gift bag tighter in my hand, the music box inside suddenly too fragile to move. I didn't respond. Outside, the air was cooler. I got into my car, set the music box on the passenger seat. My name still gleamed against the silver. Jenna. I sat there for a long moment. Then I unlocked my phone, opened the banking app, and tapped into the joint account I'd opened with them years ago, back when Dad had knee surgery and Elaine couldn't cover her emergency dental work. The balance was still decent, not extravagant, but enough. And all of it was mine. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I moved every dollar out of the joint account and never looked back. The screen glowed against my face as the numbers updated one by one. I had created a new business account the night after that dinner, quietly, intentionally. No shared recovery email, no backup phone number that led back to my parents, just a clean slate under my LLC. It took less than 5 minutes, but something in me knew it wasn't just about the money. They always said family meant sacrifice, but apparently the fine print said mine. The apartment was still and cold that morning. Sunlight hadn't even reached the blinds yet. I hadn't slept much, but I needed to move, to clear my head before the walls started closing in. I threw on a hoodie, tied my sneakers, and headed to the one place that made sense. Buffalo Bayou Park. It was early. The kind of early that made joggers look like silhouettes. A few dogs tugged at leashes. Cyclists passed in soft whirs, and somewhere in the distance, a vendor was setting up his coffee cart. The air had that crisp snap only fall in Texas gets, cool enough to sting, warm enough not to last. I jogged, but not with purpose. I didn't count miles or watch my pace. I just ran. My mother's voice from that dinner played on a loop in my head. You've always been too ambitious. That pause before she said it, like she was trying to find a kinder word but gave up. I used to think ambition was something they admired in me, until it threatened their comfort. Back home, I peeled off my sweatshirt and tossed it on the chair by the door. The place looked cleaner than I remembered. Minimalist, sharp corners, no clutter. I'd designed it that way, simple, efficient. Now it just felt sterile. I sat down at my desk and opened the family account one more time. Not to look back, just to double-check everything had cleared. It had. Then came the texts. Mom, call me. What's going on? Dad, why is the account locked? Mom again, are you okay? And then, you're scaring us, Jenna. Not a single message asked how I felt after that dinner. Not one. They didn't see the withdrawal as protection. They saw it as betrayal. I stared at the phone until the buzzing stopped. Then I powered it off. By noon, I was at Monica's. She opened the door before I knocked, holding a grocery bag in one hand and a folded blanket in the other. I brought snacks, she said, stepping aside. Shoes off at the door. I made the bed. I smiled for the first time in days. Thank you. You want sparkling water or sarcasm first? She asked. Both, I said, slipping off my sneakers. She handed me a can and plopped down on the couch. So they finally did it, huh? I nodded. They gave her the condo, said my place, fit my lifestyle better. And I'm too driven for those things. Monica raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. Elaine made sure you were invited, because she's generous like that. I sighed. They waited until I brought dessert. There was a long pause. Then she said, softly but with weight, "They always hated that you didn't need them." I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop and clicked into a folder I hadn't touched in over a year. Family expenses. I had started it as a habit. Whenever I covered something, like Dad's physical therapy or Elaine's dental emergency, I logged it. Not because I expected repayment, but because something in me knew. Scrolling through the files, I matched amounts, dates. Then I saw it. A $72,000 transfer from my emergency fund to the joint reserve. The date? Exactly 9 days before the condo closing. The memo line said, "Family Holdings, authorized by JW." Except I had never authorized that transfer. I had never seen the memo. I clicked into my banking archive. The routing matched. It was real. The quiet settled in deeper, the kind that doesn't bring peace but clarity. I printed the record and slid it into a new folder I labeled Protective Evidence. The paper was warm from the printer. My fingers didn't shake. I didn't cry. Not this time. My phone lit up again, this time with a new message. Just one. Elaine. "Hope you're not making this dramatic. This family doesn't reward drama." I stared at her words, expressionless. For years, I thought silence meant loyalty, that if I kept the peace, they'd eventually see me. But silence only taught them they could take more. If silence was loyalty, then I was the most loyal daughter they ever had. I had swallowed my words for years, bit my tongue through every casual dismissal, smiled through every reallocation of what was mine. But something shifted after that text from Elaine. This family doesn't reward drama. No, they rewarded silence. They rewarded staying in your lane, keeping your head down, and pretending not to notice when you were slowly being erased. A few days after Thanksgiving, I met with Cordell Green. Her office was tucked inside one of those Art Deco buildings downtown, where the elevators still had brass doors and the lobby smelled faintly of lemon polish and dust. Cordell wasn't what I expected. No flashy suits or forced smiles, just a woman in her 40s with clipped sentences, clear eyes, and a voice that landed with precision. She shook my hand and gestured toward a conference table. "Show me what you've got." I laid out the folder I'd labeled Protective Evidence, the $72,000 transfer, a log of transactions spanning 6 years, a spreadsheet of unpaid loans to my parents, utilities I'd covered when Mom's insurance lapsed, and that unreturned deposit for Elaine's bachelorette weekend in Palm Springs. Cordell flipped through the papers with a calm I envied. She didn't flinch, didn't gasp, just underlined dates with a mechanical pencil and asked, "Have you checked the records from the condo title office?" "I pulled the public docs," I said, but I didn't go deeper. She nodded once and made a note. "We will." There was a silence, the kind that fills a room when two people realize they've both seen enough to stop pretending. Then she tapped a sheet near the back of the folder. "This one, $25,000, authorized to Radiance PR Holdings 6 months ago. Is that your signature?" I leaned over. My name was there, or at least a version of it. But the strokes were off. The J was too sharp, the slant on the N unnatural. "No," I said, "that's not mine." Cordell circled it. "Forgery, likely digital. If we trace the IP address and cross-reference with office security footage, we can tie it to whoever submitted it. And if that's someone in your family..." She let the sentence trail. She didn't have to finish. After the meeting, I drove straight back to Monica's. The December sun was already slipping behind the buildings, and by the time I walked into her apartment, the windows glowed gold. She was sitting on the couch in leggings and a sweatshirt that said, "Not today, Satan." A mug of tea steamed beside her. She looked up as I entered and didn't ask anything, just scooted over and said, "Laptop's charged. Use mine too if you want." I pulled up the old archive I hadn't opened since my mid-20s. Buried between pitch decks and tax folders was a scanned copy of a letter from Dad, the one he sent after I got my first business loan. It read, "You're so independent, honey. Just don't forget who helped raise you." Back then, I thought it was love, encouragement. Now, it read like a warning, a soft reminder that no matter what I built, they'd always expect a piece of it. I pushed the letter aside and opened my email. Monica leaned over my shoulder as I typed the subject line. Formal summary, financial contributions and forged transfers. Attached were 3 PDFs, a list of every dollar I'd contributed to family emergencies since I was 25. Screenshots of my name used in condo documents I'd never signed. A breakdown of how Radiance PR Holdings, Elaine's company, matched line items with those forged withdrawals. I hovered over the send button. My thumb brushed the trackpad. Then I clicked. Monica exhaled beside me. Want me to make something? I've got frozen lasagna or judgmental popcorn? I smiled barely. Not yet. She got up anyway, heading to the kitchen. That's what she did. She filled the space without forcing it. While she moved, I opened another browser window and began looking into the estate records tied to Grandpa Calvin, my dad's father. He'd passed when I was 19. I remembered him vaguely. He smelled like pipe tobacco and wore suspenders even in the summer. I also remembered the day he pulled me aside and said, "Someday, one of these buildings will be yours, Jenna. You've got a good eye." Cordell had told me to check the original trust filings, and there it was, buried in a footnote. Development portfolio. Heir designation, Jenna Walker. But 2 years later, in 2017, an amendment removed me, citing redistribution of assets. The problem? The notary listed on the amendment hadn't worked at the firm since 2015. I stared at the screen, my fingers cold against the keyboard. I didn't speak. I didn't move. Just sat with the weight of it. They hadn't just betrayed me. They had planned it, removed me from the trust before I even knew I was in it. In the corner of the screen, a notification blinked. New text. Dad. Kay, please stop digging. This won't end well for anyone. I read it once, twice. He used to call me Ka when I was little, short for Jenna Cat. It was soft, safe, but now it read like a threat dipped in nostalgia. I closed the message without responding. Somewhere behind me, Monica's microwave dinged. I smelled garlic and cheese. My hands were still resting on the keyboard, fingers quiet. But something in me had changed. They weren't sorry. They were scared. The text landed like a stone in a quiet pond. Family dinner this Saturday. Please come. Let's be civil. Civility. In my family, it was never a gesture of peace. It was a signal, a curtain call before a staged performance, with me cast as the guest of honor in a show I never asked to be in. Still, I went. I arrived 15 minutes early. Not out of politeness, but because I didn't want to walk into a room already humming with their narrative. The Walker home looked the same. Perfect lawn, white shutters, a fresh pot of tulips at the entrance. The same variety Mom favored last time. Soft coral petals, almost too delicate to touch, like her version of warmth. Inside, the table was already set. 6 places. Linen napkins, wine glasses catching the light, and a bottle of something imported no one at the table could pronounce. The room smelled faintly of roast beef and anticipation. I wore a navy blouse, slacks, no jewelry. My smartwatch blinked red once on my wrist. Recording. "Jenna," my mother greeted, her voice 2 notes too high. "You look fresh." The way someone says it when they're holding their breath. "Thanks," I said, handing her a small bottle of wine I didn't plan to drink. From Hill Country. Thought it'd be familiar. Dad was pouring drinks, eyes darting to me and back. Elaine sat at the far end of the table, one leg crossed tightly over the other, her phone face down beside her plate like a silent threat. We sat. Small talk filled the first 15 minutes. Weather, spring allergies, how the azaleas were late this year. Then, right on cue, Elaine lifted her glass. Well, she said, smile curated and camera ready, I finally signed with Grover Tech. I paused, my fork halfway to my mouth. Grover Tech? I repeated, letting the name hang. She beamed. Yup, we're leading their image repositioning. Clean energy, local philanthropy, whole 9 yards. It's all about optics now. I set my fork down. Funny, I said. I pitched them last fall, got turned down, said they weren't comfortable with unpredictable family narratives. Elaine blinked once. Oh? My voice didn't rise. I didn't lean forward. I just reached into my bag and pulled out a black folder, the same one that had lived beside my desk for weeks. I brought something, I said, placing it gently between the butter dish and the roasted carrots. Mom's smile flickered. What's this, sweetheart? I opened it, slow and deliberate. Just a few things I thought we should talk about, since we're being civil. Elaine shifted in her seat. Dad set his wine glass down without drinking. I tapped the top page. This is a withdrawal authorization for $25,000, sent from my old joint account, transferred directly into Radiance PR Holdings, 6 months ago. Elaine's mouth opened, then closed. I flipped to the second page. Here's the trust clause from Grandpa Calvin's estate. It names me as heir to the development properties in Flagstaff, filed 2012. And here, I tapped the third document, is the amendment that removed me in 2017, filed by a notary who'd left the firm 2 years earlier. My mother's hand moved to the stem of her glass. Her knuckles whitened. That's a serious accusation, Russell said, voice low. It wasn't shock, it was calculation. No, I said, it's a serious fact. Elaine let out a thin laugh. You're acting like this was intentional. You forged my name, I said, voice still steady. Used my money. My name. My silence. And when I asked for space, you called me dramatic. Russell cleared his throat. You're misremembering, Jenna. I looked at him for a long beat. No, Dad, I'm just done misplacing forgiveness. The table was quiet. Even Elaine's bravado dimmed under the weight of proof. She spoke next, voice smaller. You'd really take this that far? I met her eyes. You already did. For a moment, all I heard was the soft tick of the antique clock on the mantel. No one reached for another bite. No one filled their glass. I stood. I came tonight to give you a chance, I said. Not for apology, not even for acknowledgement, just for honesty. I looked at Mom, whose eyes were glistening but dry. You braided my hair before recitals, helped me rehearse spelling bees, and then you watched them cut me out and said nothing. She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. I'm not asking why, I said. I'm just letting you know I saw it. Then I turned to Elaine. You parade around with a condo paid for by my work, signed deals on pitches I built, smiled while I faded out of photos you posted. Elaine's voice cracked. You always acted like you were above us. No, I said, picking up the folder. I acted like I belonged. You just never did. My father shifted. Don't burn this bridge, Jenna. I gave him the gentlest smile I could muster. You already sold it. I'm just walking away. Without another word, I walked toward the door. Behind me, no one followed. I stepped out into the warm Austin evening, the sky painted in soft streaks of orange and violet. I slid into the driver's seat and pulled the door shut with a soft thud. The music box I had left on the passenger seat blinked under the streetlight, silver and small. I pulled out my phone and typed a single message to Cordell. They didn't take it seriously. Let's proceed. Elaine's caption hit my screen before I even finished my morning coffee. When someone chooses ego over love, all you can do is forgive and grieve. Beneath it, a filtered photo of her on the Kirby Street balcony, arm hooked through Mom's, Dad in the background holding a wine glass like a prop. The caption had just enough sadness to pass as noble and just enough vagueness to be dangerous. Within the hour, it had racked up over 200 likes. Comments trickled in like water from a leaky faucet, slow, persistent, and designed to wear someone down. So sorry you're going through this. Stay strong. And the one that stung in a way none of the others did. She always seemed distant. Then Mom reposted it. No words, just a Bible verse. Honor thy father and thy mother. The caption read, even when it's hard. That was the moment I stopped feeling like a daughter and started feeling like a footnote. I was sitting at Monica's kitchen table, legs curled under me, the laptop humming low. Outside, the golden tint of a Texas autumn spilled across the window panes. Inside, it felt cold. Monica walked in holding a mug. You saw it? I saw it. She didn't ask if I was okay, just slid a plate of toast toward me and waited. They're not trying to fix anything, I said after a long silence. They're shaping the story before I can. That's what they do, she replied. Image over truth. We sat like that for a while, the only sound the occasional clink of her spoon against the mug. Then my phone lit up again. This time it wasn't a comment or a tag. It was Cordell. The property freeze is officially filed, she said when I picked up, and the cease and desist letters have been served. There was no joy in her voice, only certainty, and that was enough for me. Thanks, Cordell. You're not alone in this, she added quietly, even if it feels like it. I wanted to believe her. Later that afternoon, as I was cleaning up an old document folder on my desktop, a new message appeared, this time from Nora, my cousin. We hadn't talked in over a year, and even then it had been surface level. Her message was short. Hey, throwing a surprise dinner for my 40th this weekend. Hope you'll come. Mom says everyone will be there, even yours. I stared at it for a long moment. Monica leaned over my shoulder, glanced at the text, then met my eyes. They're planning a redemption arc. What? A party, laughter, matching stories. They want to look like a family again, just long enough to rewrite you. I didn't respond right away, just got up, walked to my desk, and opened the drawer where I kept things I didn't know what to do with. Inside, resting on a folded scarf, was the music box. Silver, engraved with my name, the one Mom gave me when I was 8. I used to wind it up and let it play during storms. It had once been comfort, then a trigger. Now it was something else entirely. I reached for it, cradled it in my hand, and for the first time in months, didn't flinch at the sound it made. The tune was still slightly off, like it was remembering something that hurt, but now it didn't control me, it reminded me. I placed it carefully in my handbag. Monica raised an eyebrow. I told Nora I'm coming. She gave me that look, half concern, half respect. You sure? I need them to see I'm not hiding, not apologizing, and definitely not backing down. The next morning, I stood in front of my closet, scanning the rows of clothes. It had been months since I'd bothered with anything but jeans and button-downs. My fingers landed on a black dress I hadn't worn since a friend's memorial 2 years ago. It wasn't for mourning this time. It was armor. I slipped it on, zipped it up, and looked in the mirror. My hair was pinned, earrings subtle, heels practical. No drama, just precision. Monica whistled when I walked into the kitchen. You look like you're about to deliver a TED Talk and a lawsuit in one breath. I smiled. That's the energy. We sipped coffee in silence, the kind of silence that stretches but doesn't break. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Remember, she said, they don't get to write the ending. I nodded. I already started the first draft. By late afternoon, I was parked outside the venue, an upscale dining room in the heart of downtown. The valet gave me a nod as I handed over the keys. My heels clicked across the marble floors like punctuation. Inside, laughter floated through the room. Clinking glasses, posed photos. I saw Nora hugging an aunt I barely remembered. Elaine was already there, her smile bright enough to light the chandeliers. Corinne and Russell were standing by the hors d'oeuvres, greeting people like they'd hosted a gala. No one looked surprised to see me, but they all paused just long enough to notice the black dress. I found my seat, smoothed my napkin, and placed my bag gently beside me. The music box rested inside, silent for now, but ready. Elaine tapped her champagne glass twice, flashing that familiar pageant smile. "Before we finish," she said, raising her voice just enough to command the room, "can we give a little round of applause to my sister Jenna for teaching us all how not to let ambition ruin family dinners?" The laughter came slowly, confused at first, then polite. But I wasn't confused. I knew exactly what this was. They had dressed the evening in candlelight and crystal. White roses climbed the backs of chairs. Marble tile gleamed under soft gold uplighting. Nora's 40th birthday bash was meant to impress. But for them, for Elaine, for my parents, this wasn't just a celebration. It was the stage. And I was supposed to play the villain. I stood before the clapping could finish. My chair didn't scrape. My heels didn't stumble. I walked calmly to the front, right past Elaine, and gently took the mic from her hand. She didn't fight it, but her grip lingered a second too long. I looked out across the room, people I hadn't seen in years. Some I barely knew. A few probably didn't know there'd be a performance tonight. That made two of us. I smiled softly. Not for them, for myself. "You know what's funny?" I asked. "That penthouse you've seen all over Instagram, the one with the champagne sunsets and the new chapter energy, it was paid for with money stolen from me." Gasps, as if someone had uncorked truth. "And this," I continued, reaching into my handbag, "is the documentation proving it." I pulled out the folder, 3 sheets neatly printed, and walked it to the gift table. I laid it gently between a wrapped blender and a box labeled Happy 40th, Nora. Inside are bank records, trust filings, and emails tracing over $97,000 from accounts I funded, including forged authorizations, one submitted under a notary who hadn't worked at the firm in 4 years. That's not family drama, that's fraud. The room was frozen. Corinne had gone pale. Russell's fingers tightened around his glass. Elaine didn't blink, just stared like she was watching a PR crisis form in real time and couldn't find the right spin. "I didn't come here to cry," I said, voice steady. "I came to correct the record." A chair squeaked near the back. Someone whispered, "Wait, what did she say?" Another voice followed. "Forged?" My mother stood, napkin in hand, her voice trembling. "Kay, Jenna, please, we can talk privately. You're ruining a beautiful evening." "No, Mom, I'm revealing what made it rotten." My father's tone sharpened. "This isn't the place." "It wasn't your money," I said, cutting clean through his sentence. "But you spent it like it was. You used my name, erased my role, and called it love." Elaine stepped forward, her tone brittle but controlled. "You'd really do this? Publicly? Over what?" "A misunderstanding." "I'd really do this," I said, "because you did it first." Her mouth opened, then shut, and for once she had no script. I took one last glance around the room, then turned and walked toward the doors. No one followed, at least not at first. Outside, the air was warm, Texas summer thick. I could hear muffled voices inside. A DJ was trying to restart the mood. I kept walking, heels quiet against the sidewalk until I heard footsteps behind me. A woman I didn't recognize caught up, her dress brushing against her heels. She touched my elbow lightly as if not wanting to startle me. "I'm sorry," she said. I don't even know you, but I'm so glad someone finally said it." I met her eyes. They were kind. Me too. Back at Monica's, the house was dark. She had left a note by the sink. "Call me if you want to talk, or don't. I get it." I sat down at the kitchen table, pulled the letter from my handbag, the one with Mom's handwriting, the one that arrived after the lawsuit but before the settlement. I hadn't read it yet. Not because I didn't care, because I wasn't ready. The envelope opened with a soft tear. Her words were loopy, uneven. "You were always different," it began. "I didn't know how to love you without trying to tame you. I thought Elaine needed protection, but it was you I made invisible. I can't ask for forgiveness, but I hope someday you'll understand that my silence wasn't strength. It was fear. I folded it once, then again. Then I walked to my bedroom, opened the drawer, and took out the music box. I hadn't played it since that night outside Nora's. It still bore the small scratch across the side, still played the tune slightly off-key. I placed the letter inside, closed the lid, and clicked the lock into place. For the last time. That Monday, I signed the lease for a condo overlooking Buffalo Bayou. No co-signers, no family name on the paperwork, just mine. My hands didn't shake. My pen didn't stall. I used the settlement to seed something else, too. A foundation, small at first, but intentional. Grants for women estranged from their families, for choosing ambition, not obedience. I named it after the only thing I carried through everything, the music box grant. Monica smiled when she heard. "That's poetic," she said. "Not just poetic," I replied. "It's what I kept even when they tried to erase me." Weeks passed. The press didn't bite. No headlines, no exposés, just silence, which was what I wanted. One morning, I stood on a small stage inside a community center in East Austin. No velvet ropes, no cameras, just folding chairs and warm coffee. I was introducing our first grant recipients, women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, each with a story not unlike mine. I stepped up, took the mic, and said, "For every daughter who's been told she's too much, too loud, too driven, too different, may you always be just enough for yourself." Applause followed. Not thunderous, but true, the kind that doesn't need echo to matter. Later that evening, I caught sight of Elaine again. She was across the street stepping into an old gray sedan. No driver, no publicist, no camera smile. She saw me, didn't wave, just got in and drove away. I didn't call out. I whispered to myself, we both lost something. I just learned how to rebuild. Back home, I slid the final document into its folder, labeled it Phase 2 Expansion. And before turning off the light, I glanced one last time at the music box. They called me ungrateful for not funding their dreams. I said quietly. They never realized I had one too. Sometimes the hardest truth to speak is the one your heart has carried in silence for years. But the moment I finally spoke mine, I stopped being the villain in their story and started becoming the author of my own. What I've learned is this. Being family doesn't mean enabling harm or silencing yourself to keep the peace. Real love listens. Real love remembers. And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is walk away with grace, not anger. In this life, clarity is a gift we give ourselves when others won't offer it. If this story reminded you of something you've lived or something you've let go, feel free to share your thoughts. I'd love to hear how you found your own voice, too.